You're listening to a podcast from the BBC World Service. This is Hardtalk with me, Zainab Badawi. Thanks for downloading this edition of the programme, and I hope you enjoy it. I'm Zainab Badawi, and earlier this year I went to Malta for a special edition of Hardtalk to talk to SuhaArafat, the widow of the late Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat. Soon after his death, Mrs. Arafat alleged her husband had been poisoned, and French prosecutors set up an investigation. But recently they recommended the case be closed, citing lack of evidence. Mrs. Arafat is appealing against that decision. In January, more than 10 years after her husband's death, Mrs. Arafat told me why she believes he was assassinated and why she has chosen to live in Malta and not amongst the Palestinian people. I asked her first that given Yasser Arafat was seen as the father of the Palestinian people, did she see herself as their mother?
No, I can't consider myself as a mother. I'm his partner. He is a great leader. He is the founder of Palestine. He is the father of all the Palestinian people, of all the Palestinian children. I lived this life with him. I've lived 20 years with Yasser Arafat. It's a great honor. It was a great honor for me to accompany this great leader during the most important steps in his life, during all this, suffering, during all what he has gone through. Yasser Arafat is the father of every single Palestinian child and individual in Palestine.
You say that you were with your husband for 20 years and that he was very protective towards you and your daughter Zahwa, who was born in 1995. What kind of husband was he? Because, for instance, Bari'a Alamuddin, the foreign editor of Al Hayat newspaper, the Arabic language newspaper that's published in London, says that Yasser Arafat was married to the cause and that he loved the cause more than he did his wife and his daughter.
Yes, because Bari'a, who's a friend of mine, came several times to Tunis in the beginning, and she witnessed the house. I was in the house at the same time, and the house was an office at the same time. So, I used to see him 5 minutes, and he would go to work. So I was a part of the cause. I was a part of all what's going on in his office. It's not easy, but as a Palestinian, and I felt, of course, his responsibilities and the suffering of our people. So I was sharing with him this, all this, what he was doing, all this daily life resistance. So I was accompanying him in all this very difficult life.
But since you moved out of the Ramallah and Gaza and so on, and you've lived in Paris, and now you're in Malta, living in relative comfort. When you see the suffering of the Palestinian people, as you yourself have described, those in Gaza, people who struggle to meet their basic daily needs, how does that make you feel?
Terrible, terrible. I feel that I try to do things for them. It's not easy because I'm not on the ground. I had some phone calls, a lot of some world leaders and some of people who are in humanitarian work. We tried to help a little bit, but it's so much difficult, and you feel frustrated because you want to be on the ground and you can't be on the ground.
Why can't you be on the ground?
Because it's so difficult. The name Arafat, I don't know if it would, please everybody. It's not easy to be, the center there. Because if we go with my daughter, it would be, everybody would be around us, and it maybe some people, I don't want now to name names, but some people would not appreciate my going there with my daughter. There's a lot of, in the Arab world now, a lot of tendency to get rid of symbols. We don't have any symbols anymore. Arafat was a great symbol, and he gathered people of all over the Palestinian places. If Arafat was alive, this split between Fatah and Hamas would not have ever been there.
I'll ask you about that in a moment, the split between Fatah and Hamas. But you say that the Arafat name wouldn't please everybody. And I have to go back now to the death of Yasser Arafat. He died in November 2004. He was airlifted in October from Ramallah to a French military hospital where he died. There are suspicions that you have voiced, and you, in fact, have gone further and said quite categorically, you believe that he was poisoned. He was assassinated, in effect.
Of course.
And you asked for his body to be exhumed in 2012 to have examinations done.
Yes.
But the fact of the matter is, Mrs. Arafat, that there have been 3 investigations, a Swiss, a French and a Russian one. The Russian one said Yasser Arafat died of natural causes. The Swiss one says that their findings moderately support the proposition that Arafat's death was the consequence of polonium poisoning, and the French investigation is still going on. Why do you believe he was poisoned?
I'm most convinced actually with the Swiss. The Swiss are very neutral and they are very professional. It's the University of Lausanne of the radioactive department who are investigating crimes all over the world. They exhumed the body and they said he had a moderate. It means moderate, it's in his body, you know. And polonium 210. This is the same polonium that killed, the dissident, the Russian dissident,
Alexander Litvinenko in 2006, I think it was.
In London. And I'm totally convinced because we've done all the exams, all the possible exams. We had 50 doctors coming from all over France to investigate. They've done everything, all kind of small viruses from all over Africa, from all over Asia. You can't imagine. It was a full body checkup.
So what do you think happened? Because it's believed that he fell ill after eating a meal.
Yes.
Let me tell you what a member of the Palestinian Commission on the Investigation, Tawfiq Tirawi, said in June 2013. If someone put polonium or any sort of poison in Arafat's food, it must have been a Palestinian. Maybe there was inside collaboration.
Yes, of course. It would
you
have
agree
been,
with that?
I agree totally. It would have been a Palestinian who can, be near Arafat and put it. Actually, Professor David Barkley, who is an international expert in forensic medicine, and he works with the Scotland Yard. He's Irish, and he said that it's enough to have a small dose of anything like a needle. And it's easy to put it, and it can, break all the cells in his body.
Was he absolutely fine, healthy?
He was
before this meal?
Very fine, healthy. And after this meal, he lost all his senses. He could not even,
because he was very frail and weak and thin at the end, and he was only 75 when he died.
75, he died, and he was. Yasser, my husband, have never, smoked, drank. He was healthy, he was doing sports, he was eating very, very healthy, only his soup, small soup with small chicken. He was very, all the time on diet. He was taking care of himself.
Well, I want to ask you this, because Ghassan al-Shaka, a member of the PLO's executive committee from Nablus on the West Bank, said in November 2013, it is now confirmed, according to him, that Mr. Arafat was poisoned. He said, we need to know who planned, who instigated, who implemented the alleged killing. Do you think we will ever know?
I don't know. I can't accuse anybody. I'm going with the justice. I raised a case against X, a murder case, which was accepted in France against X. I can't. It's maybe.
You say you can't point the finger, but we all remember. Difficult. We all remember that when Yasser Arafat was in hospital in Paris, and you went on the media, and you said on television. They are trying to bury him alive. What did you mean by that?
I was in a terrible situation. Yasser was dying, and every single person around him wanted to, to be sure that he will have a position, and to go ahead, who's going to be the new president. I felt there was a very ill atmosphere. I was so not happy, and I had all the accusations. That I was next to my husband in the reanimation, and the media was saying that Suha is discussing about money and all this. It was a very difficult time for me. I was so much under pressure. The Palestinian leadership wanted to come with the head of the parliament, and I did not appreciate this. It was not the right time to come when he is in the coma. So I, lost my, what you call it?
Under pressure.
Under pressure, and I made this declaration. He had a lot of enemies, but the enemies were so much strong when he was in a coma. The
Palestinian enemies, you mean?
And the Israelis. It was a terrible media.
And you said that people said, including amongst the Palestinians, that Suha Arafat is there talking money, you said.
Can you imagine?
And I have to ask you, because you have said that you feel that you've been the victim of character assassination, and Palestinians have pointed to the fact, for instance, in 2004, when you were in Paris, the French authorities investigated $11 million that was supposedly put in Swiss bank accounts, in accounts that you controlled.
Yes, yes.
We're here filming in your apartment in Malta. I have to ask you, so where is the money? Where is it?
When there is the Arab Spring came, now we had the Arab Spring, we know now who has the money, because there has been serious investigation for all these leaders who were killed.
You don't have the money. Where is the money?
I don't know. I'm asking. If there would have been money, there would have been, would have seen the money. This is character assassination, not against me, against my husband. It was against him. And we are the very weak circle, me and my daughter. So if they want to attack Yasser Arafat, they would attack his wife and his daughter. And it's all inventing stories.
Maybe it's because you lived in Paris. Your mother, Raymonda Tawil, was a very prominent human rights activist based in Paris for the Palestinian cause. Your late father was a very prominent Palestinian banker. You're from one of the best-known Christian families who are Palestinian. Maybe people felt that perhaps your connections were very European. You speak brilliant French. You studied at the Sorbonne.
But I studied in France. France was my second...
Maybe, that doesn't go well with being the wife of the leader of the Palestinian people who are very, feel they're very under siege and struggle.
Yes, but I'm living all my life in Paris. Paris is not a new thing for me. I studied in Paris. I lived in Paris. I had all my education. I worked in Paris. So Paris was always Paris for me. And when we're living in a small apartment in Paris. But the name Paris, everybody is like, they've been saying that I was all the time in the fashion shows. And nobody had seen me in fashion shows because I am a respectful woman of my own people. I can't go to any places. I lived in this. I was born in Palestine. I lived the suffering of the Palestinian people. I've been going all around the refugee camps with my family, seeing what the needs. You can't judge, somebody by its appearance. I should not be, veiled and to get dressed like my husband to be considered as a militant. Militantism is in the heart. You can't just judge from outside.
You raise this thing about, the veil and how people appear and so on, because as I said, you were from a Christian family, but you converted to Islam when you married Yasser Arafat in 1990. You said in an interview with the Italian newspaper La Repubblica in November last year, Arafat turned Palestine into a secular country. People went to the beach in Gaza.
Yes.
He never imagined it could become an Islamic state. Hamas has taken its people hostage.
Yes. I agree that Hamas is taking its people hostage. If you can do now elections in Gaza, I don't think that Hamas will win.
You don't like religion in the nationalist cause?
No, we are secular. We are secular. We are Christians and Muslims and Jews. My husband was saying you can't be a good Muslim if you're not a good Christian and you're not a good Jew. So we don't have Palestine. We're not working. We've been not struggling all our life to have an Islamic state.
But
we
if
want
he was secular,
Muslim open mind state like Lebanon, like Jordan, like all the Muslim. Between brackets, secular, open-minded.
But Mrs. Arafat, if Yasser Arafat was secular, why did he ask you to convert to become a Muslim?
Because he is a Muslim secular. He's a Muslim, a real Muslim, and he's an open-minded, but you can't play with his religion. He's a real Muslim person. And when we got married, he asked me to convert into Islam, and I was, it was an honor for me actually, and because I've studied Islam when I was young, my mother would oblige us to stay in the same class where the Muslims study Islam. So I knew Islam was not new to me, and Islam is a tolerant religion. Come on, what they are doing in the name of Islam is inacceptable.
Well, you say that.
Inacceptable.
You lived in Paris for many years, as you said, and you're saying Islam is a tolerant religion. So what is your reaction? How do you explain what's happened in the past few days in Paris?
Terrible.
With 12 people killed at the offices of Charlie Hebdo.
It's a crime. France, who opened its arms to all these people, to all these immigrants, and gave them all the French nationality, we can't treat France like this. It's not by doing all these criminal acts that we can treat the country. The country it's the light liberty, it's the light of the democracy, it's the light of fraternity, and we have ministers from Muslim origin. France opened its arms. It's terrible.
Are you worried about a religious dimension now to the conflict between the Palestinians and the Israelis? I'll give you one example. Rabbi Yehuda Glick, who is leading the movement for Jews to be able to pray in the compound of Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, known as the Haram al-Sharif for the Muslims and the Temple Mount for the Jews. And he told Hardtalk recently that just as the Muslims can pray in Temple Mount, Haram al-Sharif, so should Christians and Jews. And he wants to see that happen. And as you know, the Palestinian Muslims are saying this is not something we can accept. I have to say the Israeli government is not saying that this is going to happen, but it does mean that you're getting a kind of religious dimension to the conflict, both amongst some Israelis and then, as you said, with Hamas, the Islamist movement.
This is very provocative. The area is boiling. We don't need to put more fuel. I mean, I don't know what's going on. It's terrible. It's not now the time to go into the Aqsa Mosque. And the Aqsa Mosque is not only a Palestinian dimension. It's an international Arab and Muslim dimension, from China to India to Pakistan to all the Arab world. In doing this, they are provoking every single Muslim in the Arab and the Muslim world. 1.5 billion Muslim in all the Arab world. This is very, very, very dangerous. It will escalate the conflict. This is the problem, that if there's no solution for the Palestinian case, it will escalate, and it will be the religion war are in the area. And this is very dangerous. This is very alarming that we don't want to have a religious war in the area.
What about the religious dimension to what's going on within the Palestinian movement? As we said earlier on, we have Hamas, who are a branch of the Muslim Brotherhood, and you have Fatah, which is the more secular branch that was led by your late husband. We saw, for instance, in November in Gaza, where Hamas are very powerful, that Palestinians there were prevented from commemorating the 10th anniversary of the death of Yasser Arafat. The stadium where they were going to go was damaged. People trying to gather were dispersed by the authorities.
Not only dispersed, I was so much offended, and I was so much upset about what's going on. Yasser Arafat is a leader from all over the world. It's not only a Palestinian leader, he's an Arab, he's an international leader. And Hamas has no right to prevent celebrating the hero of the Palestinians, the founder of the Palestinian cause. They blowed, some of the people, they blowed the stadium and put some bombs in front of the Fatah leaders' houses. And Hamas said, we don't know who put it, we have to investigate. Come on, if anything happens in Gaza, you are responsible for all the security. I did not appreciate this. They are escalating. I will tell you, we have not had all this struggle to have a Muslim state in Palestine. We don't have all these martyrs all over from Lebanon, from Syria, from all the struggle of the Palestinian people to have a Muslim state. We want a Muslim laws, because we respect the Muslim religions, but not the Muslim state. And anyway, we are not a part, we should not be a part of the Muslim Brotherhood all over the world. This is not a religious, this is a nationalist.
It's a nationalist cause, and there are many nationalists who are not Muslims, like Hanan Ashrawi and so on.
People around the Arafat, most of the people around the Arafat, like George Habash and Naif Hawatmi, and most of the very important leaders, Wadi Haddad, who did the operation against Israel, were Christians. We don't want this. And the same is Lebanon, the Ba'ath Party, in Baghdad, the Ba'ath Party, they were Christians. This is not a religion cause. This is very dangerous. We don't want Palestine to be a Muslim state.
You've also said recently that you believe that the armed struggle is no longer plausible. So when you look at your husband's legacy, with the olive branch in one hand and the gun in the other, do you believe then that he was wrong to think that there could be an armed struggle that would bring results?
In the beginning, Yasser Arafat was doing the armed struggle, and it's not me who will judge him. It's the history, and the current history will judge him. But now we are leading an equal war. When there is a rocket against Israel, we have 1,000 people who are killed in the same day. It's not unequal. And we can't just do an uncalculated risks for our people. We have another diaspora. We have another refugee camp in Gaza again. We have 500,000 people who are displaced. And
this is after what happened in
yes,
July and August,
we have
2,000
more than 1,000 people who are
Gaza.
still in the coma, in the reanimation. For whom? Which price? For which price? If there's a price, I would say for which price. But Hamas, before doing something like this, they have to calculate they are not alone. There is people in Gaza, the most crowded city in the world, and they have to protect their people. You said you built tunnels. Why you did not build shelters for the people?
So are you saying
Why you did not
Hamas
build
should
shelters?
renounce their armed struggle, recognize Israel?
They have to recognize Israel, of course, and I think they have to recognize Israel because there's no other way. Don't tell me now that they are going to vanish Israel from the river till the sea.
Are you optimistic that this alliance now between Hamas and Fatah is going to hold and that President Abbas is strong enough to keep the Palestinians together?
No, I think that they have different agendas. Both of them have different agendas. And Hamas has to stop being a part of the Muslim Brotherhood all over the world. And if it stops and it will concentrate only on its people on the ground, you know, maybe there will be a solution. But they have two different agendas, and I don't think that there will never be a reconciliation between Fatah and Hamas, because Hamas will never give the security for Fatah.
You know, it's 10 years since Yasser Arafat died, and when you look at the state of the Palestinians today, Mrs. Arafat, you're no closer to having your state. 2,000 people died in Gaza in July and August last year during that particular conflict. There is some progress being made on the diplomatic scene by President Abbas signing the International Criminal Court to join that and so on. But really, you look at Yasser Arafat's legacy, it hasn't brought his people the state and the peace that they wanted.
President Abbas had not an easy task. He's trying all his best to put Palestine on the ground. He did at the United Nations 2012 for the recognition of Palestine in the
as a non-member observer state
in the United Nations. He's trying to do all his best, and he says, "I'm not Yasser Arafat. Don't compare me to Yasser Arafat. I am Mahmoud Abbas." And he has, a different way of thinking. It's not easy to come after Yasser Arafat. Nothing happened because Israel, continued to do settlements. Israel continued to build the wall.
Could Yasser Arafat's legacy continue through your daughter Zahwa, the daughter of Yasser Arafat? Could she, in time when she's older, become leader of the Palestinian people?
It's a very difficult question. This is an honor for us to have his name, but it's as well a huge burden. She's still young. She's still studying. I don't want to, to impose. She will choose whatever she wants. But
do you want her to?
It's her choice, actually. His legacy, I will assure you, now people, in the same time that Arab leaders have been killed by their people or have been put in prison by their people, Yasser Arafat people are going to his tomb and crying on his tomb and speaking about him as a great hero. His legacy will go on.
SuhaArafat, thank you very much indeed for coming on Hard Talk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. This edition of Hard Talk was presented by me, Zainab Badawi. For details of our complete range of podcasts and our terms of use, go to bbcworldservice.com/podcasts.